The flu of 1918 was one of the most devastating viruses in history. It's estimated that up to 50 million people died. But how did it begin? Some say it might have started in China. Others believe it might have started in small-town Kansas, where farmhands worked raising cattle and slaughtering pigs. Pigs who might have been the originator of the virus. See, the flu of 1918 was a version of H1N1, which we know as the swine flu. But how did a flu in small-town Kansas become a global pandemic? Well, in 1918, the United States had entered World War I, and to boost their military, they had instituted a draft. They were taking any young man who could fight, even if you were a farmhand showing intense flu symptoms. Many were sent to basic training at Fort Riley, where very quickly a severe flu made its way through the barracks. Now 55,000 soldiers made their way through Fort Riley, many of them taking this flu with them as they went to fight overseas. Now the first wave of the flu that affected Kansas and parts of America was more of your standard flu. Fatigue, fever, body aches, that kind of thing. But when the soldiers went over to Europe and they were in tight quarters very close to their enemies, the flu mutated. It became much deadlier. Victims died within days, even hours. Their skin turned blue due to lack of oxygen, and there were reports of many victims even bleeding from the ear. Now, due to the movement of soldiers from the battlefield back to their home countries, the flu became global. And guys, I cannot stress to you enough how incredibly devastating this flu was. It's said that over a third of the world's population had it. Entire families were wiped out. In fact, the average life expectancy in the United States dropped by 12 years purely due to how many people died from this flu. Now, how did this incredibly tragic time end? Well, by the summer of 1919, most of the people who had been affected had either died or built up an immunity. But also drastic measures were taken. People were quarantined, schools, churches, and restaurants were closed, shaking of hands was discouraged, and spitting was banned. And I think we should keep that one even after all this wraps up. I know things are crazy right now. Life is different for so many of us. But I've always looked to history to help understand the present and prepare for the future. And for me, I think our future is an understanding of all of our connectedness, that we're all in this together, and that if saving a life means we gotta sit our asses at home, it's the least we could do. Like literally, it's hard to do less than sit. Side note, this flu is sometimes referred to as the Spanish flu of 1918. And let me tell you why. See, when the flu first started to spread, the US, Great Britain, Germany, and France didn't want any of their enemies to know the flu had weakened their ranks, so they put media blackouts on talking about the flu. Spain, being a neutral country, chose to speak freely about the effects of the virus, which meant that people associated the flu with Spain, hence the Spanish flu. And referring to COVID-19 as the Chinese virus is wrong and racist.